Welcome to Innovating Clinical Trials, the podcast designed for clinical research professionals eager to deepen their understanding of clinical trials through concise, insightful segments. Join your hosts, Liam Eves and Ted Trafford, as they uncover the core issues in clinical research, reflect on the industry, and challenge conventional wisdom.
So, Liam, about 2 years ago, I was kind of looking around at our industry, didn't like the conversations I was hearing and reading about in clinical trials. And, I really felt like clinical trial sites were being ignored in the bigger conversations. And, I'd always been reluctant to post online and really wasn't into social media. For me at the time, like LinkedIn was a tool to kind of stay connected with people as they moved around the clinical trial industry. However, like I just felt like I couldn't stay silent. So, I had some experience. I had a voice in the clinical trial arena, and, I kind of felt compelled to use it. And so I started to write and post my thoughts on clinical trials on LinkedIn. And I wasn't really expecting much. I just kind of thought it was time to share from my experiences. So
love it.
I started, getting connection requests and followers, and people started responding, reacting to my posts. And I also started getting asked to speak at conferences. And so at the time, one of the first meetings I spoke at was a really small clinical research conference called Operational Excellence in Clinical Trials. And my presentation that I was doing at that conference, I was making the case for more site engagement in decentralized trials. I really enjoy presenting, and I like to make it engaging. So I wrote a poem.
Nice.
And thought I'd share with you today. I don't know if you've seen the poem or heard it, but I thought I'd go through it today.
Go for it. I love it.
All right, here we go. If you're a new PI, CRC, maybe CRA too, there's a language to learn as the first thing you do. It speaks in 3 letters, sometimes 4, sometimes 2, and it makes no sense to anyone who has not been schooled in the lingo of trials, and it can be found in all study files. The first thing you learn from ICT 6 is without GCP, there'll be so much to fix. Learn about IECs, IRBs, CRAOs, plus more. ICFs, SAEs, AEs are all core. Your CRA will SDV all the day through. Review PROs, CRFs, issue DCFs too. Want to continue with this confusion? An E in front creates the delusion. You're making things better for the CRC's life. The PI will tell you it just causes strife. E-consent, E-CRF, E-COA, please. E-PRO, E-REG, E-TMF, freeze. Adding more logins and passwords for me. Creating more work. Sites do it for free. FIH studies can be sad, sometimes mad. Their SOPs QA and QC are rad. To start needs a CTA IND2. Safety will be monitored by the DMC crew. End of the study doesn't mean it's complete. A CEDAR inspection is always a treat. The newest of acronyms is one you will see. It will solve all our problems. Simply hashtag DCT.
That's amazing.
Thanks, man.
That's absolutely great. Do you know that I was just smiling all the way through that because I understood it, which is encouraging.
Yeah, very few people do, especially when they. I mean, it's crazy. I'm sure every industry is the same. They have all their acronyms and language that they use, but clinical trials just loves to add 3 or 4 letters at something and start using it. And it's funny that when I started writing this poem, and by the way, I've written a sequel. Haven't shared it yet, but I've written a sequel.
We'll do that next time.
Yeah, but the language. When I started searching up, thinking about all the different clinical trial acronyms, I mean, I was digging up stuff. I had no clue what it meant. And I've been doing this for 20 some years. So, it's something that I'm sure people new to clinical trials really struggle with when they get in. So I kind of felt for them and wrote the poem.
It's amazing. And and not only, people who are just getting in it, but I think even, to your point, people who've been in it for some time, I think we probably don't know the level of detail of what it means. We understand top level what a thing is by the acronym, but it's like actually to plug that a bit deeper, there's so much value there. But that's amazing.
Oh, for sure.
I don't think I could. I cannot match that. The thing that I've got is
okay.
So I love frameworks and principles. Like I geek out at that. That's my thing. I'm a nerd when it comes to those things. And I was really lucky that I got a really amazing mentor, not from the clinical trial space, but it was from tech. And he recommended 10 books that I should read when I first started getting into the industry and sort of like trying to work out where I wanted to go. And I couldn't believe how good this particular book was at describing a clinical trial process, despite it having nothing to do with clinical trials. It was all about the factory. And it's from a book called The Goal, and I can't remember the author. But one of the theories or the practice in there is called the theory of constraints. The idea being in here is that and I'll give some examples in here. It talks about this process that consists of identifying the system's constraint, exploiting the constraint, subordinate everything else to the constraint, evaluate the constraint, and then repeat the process. And what it basically talks about is, I'll give an example here, is that by identifying the constraint. So this is like, for instance, in this scenario, we'll think about like the doctors being limited time available to assess and process patients for enrollment in a clinical trial. So this bottleneck affects how quickly the trial can be conducted and how soon the results can be generated, right, for the site. Now, when we then start thinking about how do we exploit that constraint, we need to look for ways to maximize the efficiency of the doctor's available time, right? So this could involve, like, things I've used in the past is, streamlining paperwork and admin tasks. So automating or delegating these tasks to support staff to free up the doctor's time so they can spend more time on patient assessment. Or, can you do some of the work like pre-screening by some other healthcare professionals like nurses, or to do some preliminary screening to more time. Then the third step is like being able to subordinate everything else to the constraint. So this means that like all other parts of the patient processing system should be adjusted to support the efficient use of the doctor's time. So this might include things like scheduling adjustments or arranging patient appointments and necessary interactions around the doctor's availability. So it's ensuring that there's a minimal downtime, or resource allocation, like allocating rooms, equipment, and support staff in a way that's going to really ensure everything is ready when the doctor needs it, so we can avoid those delays that might waste the doctor's time. And then the fourth step is around elevating the constraint. So if we're able to exploit, and then if it's not enough to process the patients at the desired rate, we need to ways to basically elevate the doctor's capacity. So this could be things like, hiring additional doctors if financially viable, or extended hours or shift changes to increase the availability for patient processing. And then effectively the fifth step is just repeat the process. And what is really this theory of constraints is all about is that you can only move as fast as your slowest moving part. And I don't know about you, but I've often found like, okay, when I'm looking at, first and foremost, is can I measure the process? Do I understand where the blockages are? And then how do I unlock the slowest moving part to speed my system up? And we've done this in so many businesses. One business, we were doing over 25,000 clinic appointments a year. So that was, averaging around 250 a week at one single site. Maybe 50 doesn't sound a lot, but when they are, at least an hour long, there's quite a lot of processing time there for doctors and things. And it's the one thing that I'd love to try and teach, particularly sites, how to really think about and how to do. and it's always had like a profound impact on my site's ability. So that's that's my sort of best framework for site operations as it currently stands.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And, as you're explaining this, I can just envision so many different things that you can use this to analyze different processes and different pathways. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I love it because it means you're being curious.
Yeah.
And you're asking questions.
It's what it's always about, right? It's I think that's effectively the hallmark of any good site, right? Or any good business is how curious can you be and how fast can you execute on that curiosity.